welcome to the Chapters Creative Conspiracy Podcast. If you're familiar with me, my name is, or maybe if you're not familiar with me, my name is Matthew Nanes. I used to do the Pod of Never podcast. Done that for a bit, about 50 or so episodes, and I stopped doing that. But this is a new day. It's a new creation, if you will. This podcast, it's going to be a lot like that. But I think the difference is that I want to incorporate a little bit more of the chapters part of it. So I don't know if you know this, but I was an English major, and storytelling is a big part of what I do with my business, Chapters Creative, where I help brand founders, artists, creators who want to be a little bit more bold, a little bit more radical in what they do and how they do it and how they communicate it, whether it's through their businesses or websites or content or whatever else. I want to take my experience, 10 years plus of working with brands, creating content. I've won 2 awards for my work, a GDUSA award for my video work with Assurian, and a Telly award with my work with Innova Culinary, both of them in videos. And I just want to help out. I want to help you. So most of the time, I'm going to be reading from something from my library and contextualizing it in a way that will help you be a little bit more emboldened to do the things that you've been wanting to do. Or sometimes I might do something a little bit more practical as far as content strategy or brand strategy. So expect like a lot smaller episodes, solo episodes, but also once a month I want to do an interview rather than every week having an interview. But I want to talk to people who I find inspiring in hopes that they can inspire you too. Because growing up in punk or, the hardcore or, cultures that are not mainstream, like having a business was weird, even though there were multiple examples of how you could be left of center but still do something cool, whether it's like a record store or a coffee shop or a clothing brand or something like that. But like as far as like career goes, it felt icky, like to ask people for money. But like I think for those of us who just don't feel like they fit in, there is a different way. And sometimes that is just doing things yourself, DIY, but I want to help you along the way with that as well. And before we get to it, I just want to let you know that I am offering some consulting services for those of you who are just starting out. What I do is I do a narrative workshop where I use storytelling tactics, mostly from, if you're seeing this on video, Joseph Campbell did The Hero's Journey. He's a literary professor, theorist, professor. I already said professor, but I take what he's done and then I simplify it for you to build a great story for your business and how you can communicate it to people, and also brainstorm some marketing strategies for you. And I do that in 3 hours for $200. And if I may say so myself, it might be the best $200 that you could ever spend as far as like kickstarting your project, whether it be a business, art project, or anything else. So get a hold of me if that's something you'd be interested in doing. But like I said, like I held up this book for you. It's Joseph Campbell, The Hero with 1,000 Faces, which is basically a collection of works that he did. And it's a slow read. Being an English major, it's been a bit since I've read theory, so it takes me a little bit longer to read and digest. So for me, today, I'm going to read a little bit of this and how it can apply to you. It's just a few paragraphs I'm going to read, and then I'm going to retextualize it for yourself and what that could mean for you. So for instance, I'm going to read from the Monomyth, which is the prologue to this whole thing. It's a chapter called Myth and Dream. And in this part of the book, they're talking about the dreamer in this idea of the dreamer is going to be like the hero in the story. So within through this, there's going to be some allusions to Dante's The Inferno. Not sure if you read that in college. It's basically like some people think of it, at least when I first thought of The Inferno, Dante's The Inferno was more like a spiritual book. Like, oh, they're going. The idea is that like Dante is being taken through the stages of hell, but really like it's kind of like a diss track against Dante's political opponents. But there's still some things to glean here from, especially what Joseph Campbell says here. So we're going to start. So I might do some starts and stops to talk about some things, and I'm just reacting here. Like I don't have an outline here. I don't have a script. I can easily write a script, but I don't want to do that to you. I just want to give you the real reactions of how I'm feeling as I'm reading this, and hopefully it helps you along the way. So let's start here, page 16. The dreamer is a distinguished operatic artist, and like all who have elected to follow not the safely marked general highways of the day, but the adventure of the special, dimly audible call that comes to those whose ears are open within as well as without. She has had to make her way alone through the difficulties not commonly encountered, through slummy, muddy streets. She has known the dark night of the soul, Dante's dark wood midway in the journey of our life, and the sorrows of the pits of hell. Quoting Dante here, the Inferno, threw me as away into the woeful city, threw me as away into eternal woe, threw me as away among the lost people. Oh my gosh, that is dark. But I think what Joseph Campbell is saying here is like the people that like they don't choose the typical road, they're going to have a harder time. Of course, it'd be different if like we were to be like, oh, I'm going to get my degree in finance and go to Wall Street. Like for instance, I was listening today, and I'm just putting the pieces together. I didn't plan this, but I was listening to a Gary Vaynerchuk podcast with Cody Sanchez. She's a YouTube creator. How to make I've only seen like one of her videos, but just basically finding other ways to make money. But she was saying like, like I'm a brown person. My last name is Sanchez, and I realize people with money can usually like rise above that, right? Because she was seeing a lot of like immigration issues and or dangers on the other side of the border, in Juarez and things like that. She's like, well, I can go to college, and she did. She started working in Wall Street, and that was like kind of the road well traveled, where there was a path, right? For folks like me and you, and her story's a little bit different. Like she ended up like turning away from that path to do this, to create her own world, her own life. But shit is hard when you do that. Like it's funny, like the way that Joseph Campbell takes this from the Inferno, threw me as the way into the woeful city, threw me as the way into eternal woe, threw me as the way of lost people. It feels like that sometimes when you're off and doing your own thing. You're trying to become the hero here. It's like, man, like it doesn't feel like there's anyone else doing this. It feels alone, and it feels like that quite a bit. I can tell you that for my own life, that like, yeah, there's books out there, but like unless you reach out to other people and people who've done it before you, it really does feel like this, having the dark night of the soul. I've had plenty. I'm sure you have as well, if you're following along this path. What the slummy and muddy streets, the not safely marked general highways of the day, but the adventure of this special, dimly audible call that comes to those whose ears are open within as well as without. She has to make her way alone. So let's keep reading. It is remarkable that in this dream, the basic outline of this universal mythological formula of the adventure of the hero is reproduced to the detail. Those deeply significant motifs of the perils, obstacles, and good fortunes along the way we shall find inflected through the following pages in 100 forms. The crossing first of the open sewer, then of the perfectly clear river, flowing over grass, the appearance of the willing helper of the critical moment. I want to put a stop there, not a stop, but just pin that. The high, firm ground beyond the final stream, the earthly paradise, the land over Jordan. These are everlasting, recurrent themes of the wonderful song of the soul's high adventure. And each who has dared to hearken to and follow the secret call has known the perils of the dangerous solitary transit. A sharpened edge of the razor, hard to traverse, a difficult path this is, the poets declare. Woo! So basically what he does in that paragraph is that, like, this happens over and over and over to people, whether it's like in the stories you read, like Star Wars or the Hunger Games, but it also happens to ourselves, those of us who decide to go on a path of adventure. And through that, the pin, I wanted to say, the appearance of the willing helper at the critical moment. So think about Star Wars, right? Your Obi-Wan Kenobis. He is the willing helper at the critical moment when the adventure like starts, and like the one that's going to help you do the cool stuff that you need to do. Like it's going to achieve that, like the critical success of the adventure. So that's who we need along the way. Like, for me doing this podcast, I'm positioning myself as the helper, right? As the guide to help you along your own path, whether it's, making your business, or helping you along the way to making that record or album if you're a musician, right? It's like, oh, like, but I have this collections of paintings, like I want to help you be able to communicate that, and bring people towards you. And what this is saying is, like, this is happening in life all the time. The people that go out for that adventure is going to find that person, or needs that person, in order to make a great story from themselves. So let's just read one more paragraph, and we'll get out of here. The dreamer is assisted across water by the gift of a small wooden box, which takes the place in the stream of the more usual skiff or bridge. This is a symbol of her own special talent and virtue, by which she has been ferried across the waters of the world. The dreamer has supplied us with no account of her associations, so that we do not know what special contents the box would be revealed, but is certainly a variety of Pandora's box, that divine gift of the gods to a beautiful woman, filled with the seeds of all the trouble and blessings of existence, but also provided the sustaining virtue, hope. By this, the dreamer crosses to the other shore. And by a like miracle, so will each of those whose work the difficult, dangerous task of self-discovery and self-development will be ported across the ocean of life. So for me, when I read this, I'm reading this probably for the second time, but like the small gift of water coming across the, not gift of water, but the wooden box going across the water. The way I see that is that those are the gifts that we have. Those are the interests that we have. Those are the things that we picked up along the way to gain an education, to really know what we're doing. Like, for instance, like imagine like you love Pokemon cards, right? I'm just making shit up right now, but imagine you had a real gift of knowing how to procure Pokemon cards and how to sell them, and in making a business for yourself doing that. There's an education that goes along that. There's a natural talent that goes along that, along with the interests that you have. Like, that's the stuff along with the guide that helps you along the way, that makes it easier for you to get across the bridge, so to speak, right? To success. So think of those things that you have. Think of the experiences that you have in your career. Think of the things that interest you. Think of the things you know how to do. And also think of the things that you, as far as like making money off of these things, and combine those together. Like that's the thing that's going to get you to the other side. Now it's all about gaining the right knowledge in order to do that, getting the right people around you, getting the right guide for yourself, the Obi-Wan Kenobi, if you will, to help you along the way. And so what Joseph Campbell here is like, we are that dreamer. I know he like, if he genderizes her as like a she, but it goes for all of us. Because like, if we're sitting there at our jobs, just like, man, I really want to be doing something else, and you're not quite sure how to do it, like, but like you just know inside your gut you should be doing more, then think of those things and be like, okay, like that might be my big idea. And I think, some I've been working on like a course about getting that big idea, but then I just realized I was just really doing something like a Japanese philosophy called the ikigai. I was like, oh wait, I should probably do a lot more learning about that, and I will be, and I will be reading from this book, Ikigai: The Japanese Secret to a Long and Happy Life. And I resisted for a long time a lot of like self help type of things, new agey things, because I grew up. I guess my origin story is a little bit different, but like I grew up a little bit religious, but it was mostly like my 19 through 35 years old that I was deeply in the Christian evangelical world, where those sort of things were like, why do you need self-help? You have Jesus. That might resonate with some of you, but like there are ideas out there that can help us along the way, regardless of like where we are in our like philosophy. So like me being like kind of stumbling upon this myself has been really interesting, but I'm glad I have it now, because it's been, I'm almost turning 40, and I'm just barely just like taking all of this in, like, oh my gosh, I should have had this a decade ago. But that's why I'm here right now. I'm sharing what I've learned, the things that interest me, the things that I love, and I'm here to help. So I think that's it for this first episode. Be a dreamer. Think of those things that you love to do, what interests you, your experience, your career experiences, the things you know how to do, and the things that you're like, wait, someone will pay me money to do this. And that's, if you bottle all those things up, you can also get across the river yourself, as Mr. Campbell would say. Again, if you need help putting all these things together in a ball, I'm available for the narrative workshop, 3-hour narrative workshop, where I take you through the hero's journey. Campbell here, the hero's journey. And also, if you just like, if you were, English major or in college and you missed some dense reading, get this. But anyway, all that to say, for $200, I can come alongside you for 3 hours to really hone in on that story, and then create the narrative, the storyline, if you will, to help people come to you to whatever service you want. If you're selling Pokemon cards, or if you have a SaaS company, or if you're a barber and you need help communicating what you're doing, I can do that for you. So if you want to learn more, go to chapterscreative.com. Follow me on LinkedIn at Matthew Nanes. There are other Matthew Naneses out there, but you'll know it's me. And follow me on Instagram at Chapters Creative. And it's been a joy doing this. I'm really glad I did it. Let's do it some more. And I hope I have been helpful on your own journey. So we will see you next time at the Chapters Creative Conspiracy. We'll talk to you later.